perspective course. Sorry, I'm just going to move that recording pop up. So the 6 personal perspectives, it's really a foundational course for Keller Williams. It's something that Gary Keller put in place, and it's one of the courses that he recommends that everybody take and be familiar with. And so it's more about the principles that help you become a better leader, a better parent, a better business owner, all of those things. And so we'll go through them, and you'll see as we go through, you know, a lot of it has to do with mindset. And anyway, we'll get there. So this is, there are 6 personal perspectives. And the first one is committing to self-mastery. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to see if I can play the video. Let me just see here. Sometimes it gets finicky when I want to share videos. Okay. Can you guys see that? Yeah? Okay, good. Okay, we're just gonna watch this. This is a TED Talk.
Imagine a big explosion as you climb through 3,000 feet. Imagine a plane full of smoke. Imagine an engine going clack, 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 clack. Sounds scary. Well, I had a unique seat that day. I was sitting in 1D. I was the only one who could talk to the flight attendants. So I looked at them right away, and they said, no problem. We probably hit some birds. The pilot had already turned the plane around, and we weren't that far. You could see Manhattan. 2 minutes later, 3 things happen at the same time. The pilot lines up the plane with the Hudson River. It's usually not the route. He turns off the engines. Now imagine being on a plane with no sound. And then he says 3 words, as unemotional 3 words I've ever heard. He says, brace for impact. I didn't have to talk to the flight attendant anymore. I could see in her eyes, it was terror. Life was over. I want to share with you 3 things I learned about myself.
That's why I was there.
I learned that it all changes in an instant. We have this bucket list. We have these things we want to do in life. And I thought about all the people I wanted to reach out that I didn't. All the fences I wanted to make. All the experiences I wanted to have and I never did. As I thought about that, later on, I came up with a saying, which is, I collect bad wines. Because if the wine is ready and the person is there, I'm opening. I no longer want to postpone anything in life. And that urgency, that purpose has really changed my life. The second thing I learned that day, and this is as we clear the George Washington Bridge, which was by not a lot. I thought about, wow, I really feel one real regret. I've lived a good life. In my own humanity and mistakes, I've tried to get better at everything I tried. But in my humanity, I also allow my ego to get in. And I regretted the time I wasted in things that did not matter with people that matter. I thought about my relationship with my wife, with my friends, with people. And after, as I reflected on that, I decided to eliminate negative energy from my life. It's not perfect, it's a lot better. I've not had a fight with my wife in 2 years, it feels great. I'm no longer trying to be right. I choose to be happy. The third thing I learned, and this is as your mental clock starts going 15, 14, 13, you can see the water coming. I'm saying, please blow up. Right? I don't want this thing to break in 20 pieces like you've seen in those documentaries. And as we're coming down, I had a sense of, wow, dying is not scary. It's almost like we've been preparing for it our whole lives. But it was very sad. I didn't want to go. I love my life. And that sadness really framed in one thought, which is, I only wish for one thing. I only wish I could see my kids grow up. About a month later, I was in a performance by my daughter, first grader, not much artistic talent. Yeah. And I'm bawling, I'm crying like a little kid. And it made all the sense in the world to me. I realized at that point, by connecting those two dots, that the only thing that matters in my life is being a great dad. Above all, the only goal I have in life is to be a good dad. I was given the gift of a miracle of not dying that day. I was given another gift, which was to be able to see into the future and come back and live differently. I challenge you guys that are flying today. Imagine the same thing happens on your plane, and please don't. But imagine, and how would you change? What would you get done that you're waiting to get done because you think you'll be here forever? How would you change your relationships and the negative energy in them? And more than anything, are you being the best parent you can? Thank you.
Okay. Do you guys have the student workbook for this? Do you need me to put it in the chat?
If you could, that'd be great. Thank you.
Let me grab it here. Just trying to grab it here. Just give me a second. It doesn't seem to want to upload for me. Aaron or Jessica, I'm just going to send it to you guys, and I'll get you guys to share it with everybody. That way you guys have it.
I love that the fur babies are on this call, between Jess's dog insisting on cuddles and now Phyllis's cat insisting on the attention. I'm feeling a little bit down that my cat has decided to take a nap and not come on this call. But
you just missed the screaming that was going on, because when he can't find me, he screams. So you missed that part.
Yes, we do enjoy missing the tantrums of the little ones. So.
All right, so I'm just going to, just bear with me for 1 sec. I'm just trying to get the screen sharing turned on again. It's different when I don't have Jessica or Aaron right with me to help me while I'm doing it.
But they're like the Wizard of Oz working in the background.
Oh, goodness. Okay, can you guys see that, the slides?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. All right, so we're going to start just by defining the 6 personal perspectives. So step 1 is committing to self-mastery. And that's like, I'm going to nail it. I'm going to master this, right? The self-mastery. Step 2 is committing to the 80-20 principle. And if you've been in any KW courses before, this is something that you'll continually hear in previous courses and going forward in many KW courses. We constantly come back to this 80-20 principle. So it's the idea that you're focusing on your 20%. 20% of your activities lead to 80% of your results. So we're gonna get into all of these in more detail as we go through. But as it says, we're gonna focus on our big rocks. And then moving from E to P, So I'm purposeful about breaking through my ceiling of achievement. So E to P is moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. That's what E to P means. Make being learning-based the foundation of your action plan. So you're always willing to be taught, you're always pursuing learning. And then step 5 is removing your limiting beliefs. If you have taken BOLD, we talk a lot about limiting beliefs in BOLD. And it's the idea that you want to actually unlimit your thinking, which is going to lead to your success. So, you know, sometimes limiting beliefs can be small, sometimes they can be big, and that's something we'll chat about in the course today as well. And then finally is being accountable. And so that's, you know, it's mine, I own it. And the idea is that your mindset's going to be improving and holding yourself to your goals, right? Accountability can take all kinds of different forms. So let me just, there we go. So the next thing we're going to talk about, in watching that video, that was Rick Elias, who was obviously, as you saw, the front row passenger on the US Airways flight that landed on the Hudson River. And so, you know, looking at that video, you know, his point is the idea that if you've had the chance to be given the gift of seeing the future and then coming back, how would you live differently? How would you change? You know, are there things you're putting off getting done because you think you have the time? You're going to get to it later. So the idea is that you're going to look at 3 things that you would like to accomplish in your life that you haven't achieved yet. So you want to think about something that you're going to be, do, or achieve. It could be personally, it could be, you know, in business, anything. So 3 things that you'd like to accomplish. So the be, do, achieve, again, is something that you'll hear from BOLD as well. And that's that it's actually very similar to one of the BOLD laws. And so the idea in this exercise, and the reason that we use the video from Rick's experience, is to get you thinking of that sort of bigger picture and things that you would like to actually, things that you would actually like to do. Like, are there goals that are like on fire for you now, thinking of it from that different perspective that you want to accomplish? So we're going to talk first about what is your goal and how are you doing with your goal? How do you feel about that? And what will your future look like if you do not achieve your goal? So if you're following along in the manual, you'll see there is a sort of like 4 circles. Okay, so this is an exercise that's meant to help you focus on your goal. So you're going to name a goal in the first circle. What is your goal? And then how are you doing with your goal is what you're going to put in the second circle. Then in the third circle, how do you feel about that? And then in the fourth circle, what will your future look like if you do not achieve your goal? So the idea is that nothing's going to change until you change what you're doing, right? Your activities need to change. If you're not meeting your goal, then your activities need to change. So I'm going to give you a quick second to fill in the circles, and then we'll move on to the next step. So if you could take a second and fill them in, because we're going to come back to your goals throughout. So it's important that we take a second to do that. So in the first circle, what your goal is. The second circle, how you're doing with your goal. The third circle, how you feel about that goal. And then the fourth circle, what will your future look like if you don't achieve the goal? And again, it can be personal, it can be business. It could be either or. Okay. Does anybody feel comfortable sharing their goal?
I will.
Thanks, Erin.
This includes Alex as well, but we would like to purchase an income property. So how we're doing at it is we've been waiting for the right time. So we're finally starting to get ourselves organized. And now, of course, the housing market isn't cooperating, but that's a different thing. How we're feeling about it, we're feeling nervous and scared, but also excited. Sorry. And if we do not accomplish this, I feel like we will be working forever and never be able to retire. So it is important that we accomplish it many times, not just once, but.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you for sharing, Erin.
Welcome.
Anybody else want to share before we move to the next?
Sure.
It's a safe space, guys. Safe space.
I'll share just because I'm
Share.
kind of focused on this right now, and it is a business goal as well. So my goal is to achieve $100,000, and I call it net profit because it's after CGI and royalty, like all the money that I get before I have to pay HST and personal taxes. That's the amount I'm talking about. So I want to achieve $100,000. How are you doing with your goal? Well, I've just created this goal, so now I'm in the preparation phase. So I've got all my activities set up to do that right now and trying to get myself kicked off well for 2022, because 2021 was me just holding my butt and hoping to goodness I sold something and helped people and did all the things I wanted to do. I'm feeling good about it. I feel that it's really achievable, and primarily it's because of the level of support. I think that if I felt like I was out here twisting in the wind, I wouldn't feel as confident, but I'm feeling really good about it. I think it's completely achievable, especially in this market. I think that there's a lot of opportunity there. And what will my future look like if I don't achieve the goal? Well, it fundamentally changes how my family operates because we're used to having the two incomes. So for us, just to be able to get back to what I consider to be status quo for the family is really, really important to us. We've achieved a certain level in life. We want to maintain that. And we're kind of taking this step back financially so that I can feel fulfilled in other ways. But financially, I need that to start matching up so that my passion and my belief system is followed by the money. So that's why I'm so focused on it. So yeah, it'll fundamentally change things for our family if I don't get there.
Thank you, Sherry.
No problem.
It's a great share. All right, so we're gonna go through the steps individually. So the first one is committing to self-mastery. Oh, there we go. So self-mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. So when you commit to achieving self-mastery, you know your goals, you know your strengths and your weaknesses, and you know how to work with both your strengths and weaknesses to reach your goals. Okay, so the idea is that high achievers understand that any endeavor they choose to undertake is going to require them to master a certain number of things, including themselves, right? You have to look within. And the road to mastery, of a certain subject. So if it's something business related, you often have to look at mastering yourself first before you can then master a subject within, whether it's business, whether it's financial, whether it's personal, all of those things. So once you've achieved that self-mastery, you can then develop your mastery of the topic of your choosing or subject of your choosing. And because you know where you can best utilize your strengths and weaknesses, it helps you to improve upon where you might have a weaker area. So the other thing also is, especially, you know, if you've got some goals as a family, as a couple, as a team, right? If you're a real estate team, you know, two people can often complement each other as well through their strengths and weaknesses. So maybe one of you is, you know, has more of a mind for finance and numbers, and the other has more of a mind to be hands-on and do the improvements. So like, I'll use Erin's example for, you know, she may have the background in the numbers and the finances and making sure that they're going to make a profit, or at least break even, but ideally make a profit on this investment property. Whereas Alex is going to have the knowledge to go out and find the deal with his knowledge of the market and be able to, you know, put some sweat equity into it and update it, right? So the two of them can complement each other. So it's really nice when you do have that complementary, and it doesn't have to be a personal relationship. It could be a business relationship, you know, a business partnership as well. So mastery is the possession of great knowledge, skills, and habits that make you the master of you. So, sorry, I read the wrong one. The possession of great skills, knowledge, and habits that make one a master of a subject. There's a book recommendation here as well, Outliers, which is, I haven't gotten to that one yet. That's on my list. So I've heard good things about that one. But it goes through about the topic about that book is that it takes about roughly 10,000 hours of practice to master any one field. And if you've read The One Thing, Gary Keller says it's time on task over time, right? So it's often, mastery is often very repetitive. So we're going to look at, you know, putting the puzzle pieces together. And so, you know, in the example, they use the goal of mastering prospecting, okay? And then you break that down into steps. So, you know, from an agent perspective, you want to master prospecting, because if you're prospecting and you're bringing in the leads, then those leads are going to then turn into business. So you want to identify your strengths. So you might be really good with people, and then identify your weaknesses. Maybe you're uncomfortable bringing up business in your conversation. And then once you're aware of the pieces, you can put them together and come up with a plan to help get you there. So in this situation, it could be practicing scripts. It could be taking bold. It could be calling your sphere of influence. It could be, you know, scheduling some one-on-one with your productivity coach or your MAPS coach to help get you there. So when you look at mastery, often you look at examples like professional athletes, where they continue to practice and focus on a specific thing to then master it. So that's a really great example to think of when you're looking at self-mastery. One of the quotes that I really like that I've heard that resonated with me is the quote, "Progress, not perfection." Right? So it's the idea that, you know, a lot of us can have that struggle where you're looking to achieve perfection, right? I need to get it perfect before I do it. I need to get it perfect before I send it out. I need it perfect before I, you know, and the list goes on. So the idea is not to let that drive for perfection paralyze you and stop you from doing what you need to do, right? So progress is what you need to focus on. to get to mastery. You want to be progressing through the steps and the activities that you need to do so that you can get to self-mastery. And part of that is realizing that you're not going to always do things perfectly, and that's okay. So in that, I know I mentioned BOLD a couple times, just so some of you who are newer may not have heard of BOLD. So BOLD is a course, it's Business Objectives Life by Design. That's what the BOLD stands for. And it's put on through MAPS Coaching, which is Keller Williams Coaching Division. And the idea is that it's about mindset, but it's also about getting you into the habits to achieve success. And there's a high level of accountability in BOLD, in that, you know, every week you have to report your numbers. You're in a team, and, you know, everybody's numbers affects their goals. You're expected to, you know, make your contacts and lead generate. And then you track your numbers. It's the traditional BOLD, during COVID, they switched to an online one, which is a little bit modified. But traditionally BOLD runs for 7 weeks, and it's one session a week for 7 weeks. And it's a great course. We will be looking at bringing it into the Market Center probably near the end of 2022. We don't have it scheduled yet, but it's a great course. So when it does come back, I highly recommend you register for it and get yourself involved, because we've had numerous success stories within our office of agents who have taken BOLD and really, you know, jumped their business to the next level, and then continued to do it by practicing and putting the habits that they learned in BOLD in their day-to-day in their business. So it's a really incredible course. So that's why you'll hear it mentioned quite a bit, because, you know, a lot of these things are things that we cover in the BOLD course as well.
I'm a little intimidated by BOLD, but I'm willing to dive in when it comes around again. I've heard some scary things.
It's not scary. I think it's just there's a high level of accountability, and sometimes people can find that accountability scary, because you have to report out your numbers, and you don't want to let down your team, because you're assigned to a team, and you don't want to let yourself down too. So it's more about that. I wouldn't necessarily say it's scary, but there is a very high level of accountability in it, and that can be uncomfortable, which we're going to talk about. So this video here, we won't watch it, but this is Bruce Hardy's, one of the regional directors, talking about self-mastery and what it did for his business. So I'll just summarize it for you. Basically, he used a personal example of learning karate, and his best friend being a black belt, and he starting out being a white belt, and them going through an exercise, and he accidentally punched his friend and knocked him out because he was learning. He didn't have mastery of that move, right? So he's, in his example, he talked about how he's applied that personally in that specific example, and also then used the same principles and applied it to his business to master prospecting and lead generation to bring in his listing business, right? So it all sort of ties together in that way. Okay, so let's switch to the next one. So this exercise talks about listing 3 obstacles that you think might hinder your success. And the idea is that to consult and discuss, when they're saying partner, they're thinking we're like paired up in the classroom. So it's not always the most obvious choice. So One of the things I'll mention when you're looking at setting your goals, and those of you who are in coaching with Colin will already have heard this, but you want to make sure it's a SMART goal. So that's an SMART, right? So it's specific, measurable, achievable, timely, and you want to make sure that you get specific with it. If it's really broad, it's going to be harder for you to measure and track against that. And you want to make sure, so for example, you know, one goal that we've heard in this session before was, I want to sell enough properties to invest enough money. That's a great goal. But what's selling enough properties to invest enough money? It's not specific enough. It's too general. So you really want to drill down into that. So how many homes is enough? Do you want to sell 50 homes, or is 30 enough, right? So you want to look at that. I want to sell 50 homes so that I can then invest in, you know, X, Y, or Z, right? So you really want to make sure you actually get specific and drill down with your goals. And it's the same thing, like if you're looking at a GCI goal, or like Sherry's goal is a great example of that, where you drill it down to your actual net profit and what you're going to clear and take home. It's a very specific, measurable goal that you can target. And you also want to put a timeline on it. So is that something you want to achieve in the next year, right? If it's something personal or something business related, you want to still put a timeline on it. It doesn't matter either or, because it's going to help you really focus and break down the activities that you need to do to get to the goal. Any questions on that? No? So the ideas, the goal that we did in the earlier exercise, for this exercise, you want to actually look within and come up with 3 obstacles that you think could hinder you from getting to that goal. All right, so I'm going to keep going. If you're not quite finished, you can keep writing or typing. So the next part of the exercise is to look at what strengths you feel you have that are going to help you overcome those obstacles that you just completed. And then look at what weaknesses might hinder you from overcoming the obstacles. And how can you conquer those weaknesses? And then finally, you're going to look at, are the obstacles movable? Utilizing your strengths and being aware of your weaknesses, what is your plan to get around the roadblocks? So is there something you can master that will help? And then looking at, you know, the action steps and the plan that you're going to put in place to get to those goals. So in the example we used with the prospecting, and the strength is that you're good with people, you might be able to build on that skill, right? If you're not comfortable, but maybe you're uncomfortable bringing up business, well, maybe what you need to do is start practicing scripts so you feel comfortable having that conversation. And part of that practicing scripts might be teaming up with a buddy from the office that you can practice your scripts together, so that you guys are having those conversations and giving each other, you know, some objections that might come up, or things that you're, you know, worried about someone bringing up, and you guys can role play that and practice that together to overcome that obstacle and what you might perceive as a weakness of yours, right? To get you more comfortable in having those conversations. And then as you practice your scripts, you know, a plan for that might be you're going to meet once a week at a set time with your script practice partner and go through those scripts together, your prospecting scripts, right? Maybe part of your prospecting is going to be door knocking, although in all this snow, that might be a challenge, but maybe you want to do that as part of your prospecting, but you're uncomfortable with that. So maybe you team up with a partner and practice around door knocking, and you're going to do that together, right? So that's what we mean when we're talking about coming up with a plan. So you have something that you can practice to then continue that habit to get you on the path to self-mastery. So it's, any questions about that? Okay. Jump in if you have questions. Don't be shy.
Melissa, I was just going to say door knocking in this weather is probably the best.
Right? You wouldn't catch me doing it, but
it means you're serious about the business.
It's true.
I find just in past
you wouldn't even be able to see my face. I'd be so bundled.
Yeah, with the mask and everything.
Oh, any ahas so far from the first step?
I actually really enjoy how this is flowing from different things that I've taken recently, like for setting up your goals for 2022 and just getting that flowing. This feels almost like a natural continuation of that. So that's kind of my aha, because I've already started, you probably can't see it, but I've created a sheet of what my goal is and my strategies to achieving the goal, and I'm keeping it right here. My aha right now is like, okay, now I'm starting to feel like I'm diving into that. So that's an aha for me.
Thank you. That's a great one.
And Melissa, I'm also excited about the bold. I think that I haven't taken it before. I'm really excited about it, but I think that our biggest obstacle a lot of times is ourselves. And that's my biggest one that I put on here. And I think with the bold, I don't know a lot about it, but I can suspect that the reason why it is so successful is it pushes people and makes them realize what their full potential is. You know, they're accountable. So they're accountable to other people, sometimes more than we're accountable to ourselves, right? So I think by people going and pushing and driving, and then they see the results, they're more apt to then see it and want more of it. So, and doing that, this is very important, our timing coming into 2022 to take the time to look at that. So those are kind of my aha moments just so far.
That's great. Thanks, Jen. Just to also reiterate, if you guys haven't taken business planning yet, we've had a couple different business planning courses offered, but if you missed out, there is one scheduled for, let me just grab it, the 14th of December, next Tuesday. And that is going to be from 9:30 to 3. And that's going to be hosted by Anne in our office. So that's one specific for our office. We did have one that was part of the MREA, the Millionaire Real Estate Agent series that was taught by Jean Rivers, which was part of Regions training. So if you missed out on that one, jump in on this one, and that's part of what Anne will go through in this business planning course, exactly what you just mentioned, setting your goals for 2022, and also looking at having a really deep dive look at what your expenses are and what you need to set for your goal income wise so that you're where you want to be, right? So exactly like you said, Sherry, you know where you want to be for your net. So that's exactly what's going to be covered in the business planning course. So if you haven't done that and you need help to walk through that, jump in on that course. Anyway, just wanted to mention that as we're on that topic. All right, so step 2 is the 80-20 principle. And the idea with the 80-20 principle is that there is a pattern of predictable imbalance in life, and it's called the 80-20 principle. So, oh, I lost there we go. So the idea with the 80-20 principle, this was discovered by an Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto, and popularized by Dr. Joseph M. Juran. And the reason it's called, you'll also hear it called the Pareto principle, okay? The 80, so sometimes it's referred to as the Pareto principle, sometimes it's just the 80-20 principle. So it's the idea that 20% of our activities yield 80% of our results. So there is an excerpt from the Millionaire Real Estate Investor book, which is, you'll see it there on your screen. And I can read it to you. It's just Gene Arant, mega agent in Austin, Texas, remembers one of his first breakthroughs in mastering this principle. Before I took Bold, I used to spend a lot of time every day putting out fires. I felt productive because I was very busy. Subconsciously, it made me feel like a hero when I saved the day. Then in my very first Bold, we spent time going through our calendars and identifying our dollar productive activities. I was shocked to see how much money I was losing by spending my valuable time on tasks that were nowhere near my 20%. Now I focus my time on my one thing, lead generation, and I feel like a hero when I see how well I am providing for my family. So the idea is that if we've focused on our 20%, we're going to get 80% of the results we want. So it's not necessarily something that's intuitive, because often we'll feel like the more we do, the more we should see in the results. But there's a difference between being busy and doing like busy work versus being productive, right? So the example with Gene there that we just read is talking about how getting focused on and understanding what your 20% is going to help you get those results you want, lead to your 80%. So, for an agent, your 20% should be lead generation, right? You need to lead generate to get the business to then be able to have that lead to contracts, which leads to closings, right? So that's the whole idea around the 80-20 principle. So this is a video. So I'm not going to play the videos today. They're all on YouTube. So if you want to go back and watch them, they're pretty short. They're under 5 minutes. But just in the interest of time and simplicity, I'll just sort of summarize them as we go through. And feel free if you want to go back and watch them on YouTube. They're there. But essentially, what Madison talked about in his video was getting bogged down in the busy work. So he was an OP of a market center. OP stands for operating principle. And he found that he was getting busy in all this busy, these things that weren't leading to his 20%. He was getting bogged down to the point where he was actually looking at stepping down from his role and replacing himself. And when he went through that process and he went through a process, what we call career visioning now, and that's another KW course you can take if you're looking at making hiring decisions within your business and you're looking to potentially grow a team or make a hire. It walks you through how to do that. In any case, he went through that process, and in doing that, got really clear about what his 20% was and refocused himself on that 20%, and then became very successful in the role and stayed in the role because of that. He realized how to manage his time and get out of the busy work and focus on the 20% to then move ahead and feel comfortable doing the role, and then started to see the success as a result of that. So that's my brief summary of the video. So this next one is a story. It's The Big Rocks Come First. So I'll read it to you guys. A philosophy professor decided to teach his class a lesson on priorities. He pulled out a jar and added as many big rocks as he could fit. He asked the students if it was full, and they agreed it was. So the professor picked up a box of pebbles and poured them in. He shook the jar lightly. The pebbles, of course, rolled into the open areas between the rocks. He then asked the students again if the jar was full. Fewer students agreed it was this time. The professor picked up a box of sand and poured it in. Of course, the sand filled up everything else. When he asked the students again if it was full, he heard a few tentative yeses before he pulled out a watering can and proceeded to fill the jar to the brim. He looked out at the expectant faces. We can all finally agree this jar is full, right? The students nodded, wondering where he was going with his demonstration. He pulled out another empty jar identical to the first. More big rocks, more small rocks, more pebbles, more sand, and more water. In reverse order, starting with the water, he asked if he filled the jar with those things, would there be room for any of the other things? All the students said no. When he got to the big rocks, he exclaimed, the big rocks must go in first. This jar is symbolic of your life. Everything here represents a priority in your life. The big rocks represent the highest priorities in your life, your list of essential non-negotiables. The others represent smaller and less important priorities in your life. If you spend all of your life chasing trivial things that don't matter, you will never achieve your highest priorities. Whatever your highest priorities are, make sure that you make adequate time and space in your life to accomplish them. So the whole moral of this is obviously in the title, right? Your big rocks come first. And we talk about that. We refer to sort of the big rocks that you need to focus on as part of your 20%. You want to focus on your big rocks. The other things, it doesn't necessarily mean that the other things don't get accomplished, but they're not the priority. They still, in many cases, they still have to get done, but the priority should be the big rocks, your 20%. What you're going to focus on. So this graphic just demonstrates that when we're focused on the 20% that matters, we get the 80% of the results we want. So our big rocks versus 80% of our results. So extreme Pareto is identify your 20% and then go even smaller by finding the vital few of the vital few. So the idea with this is that you're going to move your, what we'll call a to-do list into a success list. So the idea is that you want to look at, when you make your to-do list, you're going to pull from that the things that you should do, the things that are part of your 20%. This is something that we cover in the One Thing book. And it's, yes, there's an excerpt here from the One Thing. So I'll cover this, but if you haven't read The One Thing, that's what the whole book is about, focusing on your one thing. So it's a really good read if you haven't read it. So this is the excerpt from the book. Much to do about nothing. While to-do lists serve as a useful collection of our best intentions, they also bog us down with trivial, unimportant stuff that we feel obligated to get done. Because it's on our list, achievers operate differently. They have an eye for the essential. Left in its raw state, as simple inventory, a to-do list can easily lead you astray. The first thing on your list is just the first thing you thought of. To-do lists inherently lack the intent of success. Long hours spent checking off a to-do list and ending the day with a full trash can and a clear desk have nothing to do with success. Instead of a to-do list, you need a success list, a list that is purposely created around extraordinary results. To-do lists tend to be long. Success lists are short. One pulls you in all directions, the other aims you in a specific direction. If your to-do list contains everything, then it's probably taking you everywhere, but where you really want to go. So the idea is sort of, and you'll see this as we go through, that each of the 6 principles are very much linked together. And we talked about this. There's a difference between being busy and being productive. And so, you know, an example that we could talk about is, you know, setting the goal to run a marathon. And then if you look at that, all of the activities on your to-do list, there are going to be some activities that are going to lead you to success in that goal more than others. So the idea is to break out the things that you really need to focus on so that you can reach that goal of running a marathon. So as you look on it, it might be, you know, coming up with a running regimen. It might be joining upcoming 5 and 10Ks, practicing on hills, time blocking your running practice. It might be getting a coach or a partner to run with and help keep you accountable. It might be, you know, coming up with an alternative. If the weather is crappy and you can't really run, then maybe you're going to hit the gym and run on a treadmill. Like all of those things, right? There are going to be certain things that are going to help you focus on achieving that goal. So this is just the marathon example, right? And looking at all the different things, right? Run a marathon. Okay, here are, you know, 5 of the things that we need to do. What are the most important? And then we break it out. Like, is there having a regimen, time blocking, coordinating with a running partner or coach? Okay, so these 3 things are the most important things, right? Out of all of the list that you really need to focus on to be successful in that goal. Okay, so the next exercise, we're going to continue on with your goal from the first exercise. So you're going to write your goal in the top, and then you're going to list as many of the things that you can think of that you are doing or could be doing to make the goal a reality. And then the third step is, from all of your to-do lists, you're going to go through and create a success list by circling the tasks that are going to give you the most impact to reach your goal. And then the last step is to identify the one thing you can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary. And that comes directly from the One Thing book. That's why it says the one thing. And you'll hear that. So identify after you, so the idea is your goal, your to-do list, narrow down your to-do list to make it a success list, and then identify the one thing out of your success list that you can do such that by doing it, everything else is easier or unnecessary. So it can often tie into your plan for, especially where we're in that fourth quarter right now and we're doing our business planning. And some of your business planning should look at your personal goals as well. So, you know, it's going to be a whole well-rounded plan. So the idea is, are you living to your 2022 plan? So it's all about your goal setting and then your top 20%. And this is something from the market center level that we do as a leadership team, looking at, you know, what each person's 20% is, right? Like Erin's 20% is a little different than my 20%, or Jessica's 20%, or Laura Lee's 20%, and how we're all going to each contribute to reaching our goals for next year. So it's the same concept within your own business or within your own personal life, is looking at your goal and then breaking it down into the activities that you need to do daily, weekly, monthly, right, to get to that annual goal. And we'll come back to that as we keep going. All right. So the 411, have you guys heard of the 411? No? Yes?
Yep. Colin introduced us to it.
Oh, sorry, I went too far. How do I go back? There we go. How do I get that? There we go. All right. So the 411 is it's a really awesome tool, okay, that you can use to sort of break everything down if you're a visual person, you'll love this because it breaks everything down very nicely in categories for you. But it helps you focus on your 20%. And the idea is that you're going to set your goal for the year and then the month, and then you're going to break it down weekly. And you're going to look at your business goals. You're going to look at your job goals, your personal finance goals, and your personal life goals. So the idea with the 411, there's a sample one here up on the screen. I don't know if you guys can read it. It's a bit small. But this is one for a mega agent as an example, right? So for their annual goals, you'll see they've actually made very, very specific goals here, in that, you know, they want to have their annual goals, they want 24 listings sold, 18 buyer sales, 60 quality listings, which means they're going to have to go on 150 listing appointments to get to those goals, right? And then in their business goals, they've broken down, you know, 76 buyer sales. So 24 listings sold, 2 new projects a month, 750,000 in GCI, 200,000 in net profit, personal financial, monitor investments, repay their loan. And then personal, read 1 to 2 books a month, lose 15 pounds, complete a course in conversational Spanish. So those are their overall annual goals. And then they're going to break each of those categories down into their monthly goals. So what are the things they need to do monthly to achieve that annual goal? So it's just breaking it down into smaller pieces so it's more manageable and it's easier for you to track and to achieve. So for the job, right, they've broken it down instead of monthly. They need 5 listings. They need 2 of those listings to sell. They need 2 buyers in escrow. So escrow, this is an American term. It's essentially for us the equivalent of like a pending sale. 3 buyer contracts closed, 15 listing appointments, and then lead generate for 3 hours a day, right? You'll see in business refining their follow-up system with their admin, having buyer specialist closings, hire a new buyer specialist. You know, in the personal financial, it's purchase an investment property, make a loan payment, and then in the personal, read the shift, attend jazzercise twice a week, research local colleges that offer courses in Spanish. And then you'll go through your weekly goals and break them down for each of the categories and what you have to do weekly. So for the job, they have to go on 5 listing appointments, close 1 buyer contract, do their lead generation daily, right? And then it goes on. So this is just an example. So this is a really awesome tool. The 411 is what we call it. And it's on KW Connect. And it's really helpful to get you focused. So you want to make sure that you're breaking the goals down so that your weekly goals are going to correspond to your monthly goals, your monthly to your annual, and as you go. And it all ties back to the one thing as well, in that you want it to be more focused on your success list, not a to-do list. So again, focusing more on that 20%. And there's also some really great stuff on this on the One Thing website as well. So you can find the 411 on KW Connect, and you can also find it on the One Thing. So that's that one. And then, oh, I lost my arrows. There they are. And then there's a blank one in your manual as well. There's a blank one. So, and then there's the link there to my KW to get another blank one as well. So you can, something that you can make part of your actual business planning and your goal setting. So that's the idea, is that what we did in the earlier exercise, now you would then tie that into your 411 and look at how you're going to break that down annually, monthly, weekly to meet your goal. So one of the things that that the One Thing covers quite well is talking about time blocking, and that's managing your 80-20. So you'll see here, people think there's never enough time to be successful, but there is when you time block it. So the One Thing, specifically, I think it was chapter 15 in the One Thing, talks about how to create your time block and then protect it. So the idea is that you want to make sure that if you remove something from your time block, that you're going to replace, like if you erase it, you replace it. That's sort of what our go-to. So you want to make sure that you're consistent. So you want, because the idea is that you're going to set a habit with your time blocking as well. So you want to make sure that you're blocking off your, you might need to block off an hour a week to review where you are at with your goals and what you need to do to refocus, right? You want to make sure you're being thoughtful and purposeful about what's on your calendar and what you're doing in your day-to-day to lead you to your goals. And your 411 can be the tool that helps you realize that and refocus on that. You want to time block for your big rocks, right? As we call it, the 20%, to make sure that you're en route to your success. And the recommendation has been that you're better off to time block for your lead generation in the morning. And you'll hear that over and over. As long as, if you're not able to do it in the morning, as long as you've got it time blocked somewhere, but that's the recommendation. And then of course, the last piece is what I mentioned earlier. If you erase it, you replace it. So, obviously there are things that can come up that have to be dealt with immediately, and it's not something that you can just not deal with. So if that's the case, then you just want to make sure that if you had something that was really important, that was part of your 20% in your time block, that if you erase that, you're going to replace it. So like, I'll give you an example. I have, you know, a meeting with Laura Lee that's at the same time every week. It does not get changed. And if it does get changed because of something, you know, really important that comes up that we have to reschedule it, we make sure that it gets rescheduled. And we still have that meeting to make sure that we're on target for our goals. So, and that's it. The meeting is all around our, it's an accountability conversation for her and I. So it's the same thing in your own business, and looking at that and making sure that you're time blocking. And so if practicing with a script partner, you know, for your prospecting was part of your 20%, then set that as a standard meeting that you're going to do at the same time every week. And if, you know, life happens and you have to change it, you're between the two of you, you're going to find another time to make it work and reschedule it. So, and that's just the 4 key successes. So that we just talked about that with the time blocking. And so the idea next is that you're going to look at time blocking your 20%. So again, we're going back to the goal. And that's why I said the goal at the beginning was important for you to complete, because we sort of build on it and continue to go back to it throughout the course. So the idea is that you recorded your goal, you've added it to your 411. So now you've broken it down monthly, weekly, as to what you need to do to meet your goal. And then what you're going to do is you're going to look at actually time blocking on your calendar, in your schedule, what you would need to do weekly to get to your goal, right? So for Sherry, for you, if you worked it backwards to figure out how many appointments you needed to go on, right, to get however many listings and however many buyer contracts, then you know you need to go on X number of appointments, right, per week. So you might put in your time block, you may have 3 hours of lead generation a day, and part of that lead generation might be calling your sphere of influence. So people that you already know. It might be calling past clients and asking them if they know anyone who wants to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, right? It might be door knocking. We're not really doing much open houses, but back when we were doing open houses, it might be open houses, right? There are all kinds of things you can do to lead generate and to get those appointments. And so you want to make sure that you're time blocking that into your schedule, and you've got it blocked in there daily. So you know when you're going to do it. Make sense? Okay. Questions on any of this?
No. One of the things that we did cover in one of the other sessions leading to the 2022 goals was the percentage that you perceive that you'll be able to get those active appointments, the percentage to close those appointments and get either a listing or a buying client, the percentage that you'll actually, and the further along you get, the higher the percentage is that you'll actually get that revenue that's associated with that. So exactly. I really enjoyed that exercise, to be honest. It drove towards my disc, which apparently is a high D, high C. So it really resonated with me. I'm sure Erin, who's smiling, can relate to that. Her and I seem to be twinsies on the disc stuff. So I really, really enjoyed it. I love the 411. I do find that I get so caught up in my details of the 411 that it almost feels like it's so much. I'm like, oh my gosh, I missed today. Okay, now today's building on tomorrow. And oh gosh, I get bogged down with something else today because something else had to have my attention. Yeah. So I'm trying to find that balance between staying focused on those goals, but not allowing them to drive how I feel about what I'm doing, because I love my lists. I do enjoy being able to cross things off. There's something very cathartic about it. But if I don't get to cross something off, I feel like it sits heavier on me. Yeah. So I'm trying to be very mindful. That's a weakness of mine. I need to not get bogged down in so many details that I forget what my overarching goal is. So I struggle with that balance. Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of people do. That's a very common thing. So like you said, you have to bring it back to, although you might feel a little bit
down because you didn't get to cross that thing off, but what were your activities that you've been doing to help get you to that overarching goal? Because that's the goal, right? The big thing, that's your one thing, your goal, right? And that's what you want to achieve. Yeah, but yes, thank you. That's a very, very common struggle for people. So thank you for sharing. Okay, let's, when I move my thing, it starts to forget. Protecting your time block. So the world doesn't know your purpose and priorities and isn't responsible for them, you are. So the idea is, again, like we talked about with protecting your time block. When we go through this, it's build a bunker, right? So find somewhere that kind of keeps you as free from distraction as possible, right? Store provisions, which it like sounds like you're getting ready for Armageddon or something, but the idea is that, you know, have everything you need in your, you know, safe space, right? So that you're not constantly getting distracted by running to go get this and that and whatever else you need. Sweep for minds, and this one is one that I think is very difficult, especially in this day and age, and the idea that we always have these, right, tied to us, and sometimes you need to put it on silent or do not disturb, right? If you're in your 20% and you're focused and you're in your time block, you want to try as much as you can to minimize those distractions. It's a challenge, and I totally understand and struggle with that myself in full transparency. So it's something that we all have to continue to work at. And then we have to enlist support. So, you know, telling those people that are most likely to seek you out what you're doing and when you'll be available, and they will be accommodating when they see the big picture. And one of the things I always find funny with this one is we used to have, when the One Thing book came out, there were door hangers, and it said, "Do not disturb me, I'm working on my one thing." And our team leader, who's retired, but back then was Valerie, and she had it on her door. And I remember, because she used to always say, "I'm doing my one thing, but I keep getting interrupted." So she closed her door and put the door hanger on her door so that people would know she's doing her one thing, don't interrupt her. When the door hanger wasn't there, you were okay to go in, or knock on the door. So, you know, there's little things like that you can do to try to help, you know, limit the distraction and get some support from those around you. But that's always one of the ones I always think of when we talk about that. So again, this is all part of the One Thing book. And this actually came right from the One Thing as well. So there's a lot of resources on this, again, at kw.com and on the One Thing website as well. So you can find it all there. So any ahas from the 80-20 principle? I'll share that it's something that you have to continually revisit. It doesn't necessarily stay the same depending on how your goals change. You may find your 20% shift slightly. So it's something you have to be constantly aware of. All right. The next one, this is a neat one, moving from E to P. So the idea with moving from E to P is moving from entrepreneurial to purposeful. So in the graphic, you'll see here, the E, which they're saying is the entrepreneurial way. It's doing what comes naturally to you, what comes easy in a sense, right? And then we're going to hit that fundamental ceiling of achievement. So it's normal to hit that ceiling of achievement. The idea is to break through the ceiling of achievement. And in order to do that, you need to be purposeful about it. So it's getting comfortable being uncomfortable. And in order to break through your ceiling of achievement. So doing that, you'll see in the graphic, it says coaching, consulting, training, right? So it's part of the learning-based mastery, right? Higher and higher levels of success. So you're moving yourself forward. And sometimes you'll see this in different ways, right? When you hit that sort of ceiling of achievement, it might be being stuck at a certain level of production for months or years in a row, even though you're working harder or longer, right? It could be not having enough time for friends or family for months in a row, even though you're trying to implement time management skills. It could be being stuck at a certain conversion rate of calls to appointments months on end, right? So if you feel like you're stuck, that happens. You've hit that ceiling of achievement. So at that point, you have to change your activities in order to break through the ceiling of achievement. That's the idea. So it doesn't happen overnight. The idea is that you have to be purposeful about your actions and you have to break through it. So in order to do that, you can train, you can coach, you can consult. You know, often people will say that having this conversation, especially, you know, when we're doing courses like this, like Bold, people realize that they need to change their activity to change the outcome. So that's sort of, it's all, and that's why, you know, the comment about Bold being scary, because Bold is it's a lot about this, and the focus is about getting you out of your comfort zone and getting you out of that ceiling of achievement, moving past it. So doing that, you feel uncomfortable, and it's normal to feel uncomfortable because you're out of that comfort zone. You're not doing what comes naturally to you. You're being purposeful and in moving yourself forward. So this is another video, and basically very similar to what I just mentioned. Brenda just talks about how she became more purposeful in her focusing on her 20% to, you know, she realized that she was bogged down in the busyness like we talked about previously, and she refocused. And when she refocused and focused on her 20% and those activities, she was able to break through that ceiling of achievement and get to the next level of production. For her, she was stuck at that one level of production, and she was able to move forward. So you'll find that often when you get purposeful, you will feel uncomfortable with that because you're not doing what comes naturally, but you're committing to what needs to get done to move you to the next level. And sometimes it might be an activity that you haven't done before, or it might be, you know, getting mastery around that activity. So maybe you're doing okay, but you need to actually practice it more and master it so that you can move through to the next ceiling. So the steps to breaking through this your ceiling of achievement, the first one is to focus, which is writing down your goals and focusing on your 20%. So as I said, it all ties together, right? So this is how moving from E to P ties together with the other principles. Then you're going to find strategic options. So you'll ask, how can this be done? Are there different, better ways to do it, right? And with strategic options, it's important to sort of have that inner reflection. And then the third thing is looking for models to follow. So attend training that teaches you how to get where you want to go. Identify mentors or people who have done it. This is a great one because at KW, we have many resources and many people who are willing to help and share what they've done. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel. There are models, and we're a company built on models and systems. So chances are someone has already done what you're trying to do, and there's a model or a system to follow to do that. And often all you have to do is just ask, and you can find, you know, whether it's a training, a video about, you know, whether it's training or someone talking about the method they used to be successful in that item. It can be coaching. There's many, many things. It could be a fellow agent within our brokerage who has done something very successfully that you're looking to emulate, right? So lots of options. Then installing systems. So that's time blocking, creating checklists, testing the systems to make sure they work. And then bringing in the accountability. So you want to be able to measure what you're doing, keep track of it with your 411 action goal sheet, and have an accountability partner, which we talked about as in the previous section as well. So moving from E to P really ties in with everything else we've been talking about, right? And the most important thing is to make sure that you're, we're going to get to the accountability part, but you want to make sure that you're tracking your goals and you're able to measure and track against how you're doing, and that you're checking in. It's important not to just set the goal and leave it. You want to keep checking in on the goal. Any ahas on the E to P? No? I find this one very interesting because this continues to reappear, right? It's very natural to hit a ceiling of achievement, and you'll often find you'll break through one ceiling of achievement, and then you'll get comfortable in that new space, and you'll hit another level, and there'll be another ceiling of achievement, and then you have to get uncomfortable again. You have to get purposeful again about your activities and what you need to do to break through to then get to that next level. So it's sort of a repeating pattern that happens, right? So it's not something that you can just do once and then feel like, oh, I've done it, I'm good, right? The next one, step 4, is being learning-based, being the foundation of your action plan. And so a learning-based individual is someone who's made the decision to use effective learning as the foundational piece for their action plan to develop their life. So, you know, when we just talked about moving from E to P, education is a big part of that, and a big part of moving you forward to get to your goals. And there's always room for growth, right? You won't ever know it all, so you have to continue to learn, and knowledge for the sake of doing is essential for you to become an enlightened and productive person. So that's, you know, when we say learning based, that's what we mean. So it might be something, it doesn't have to be a big thing. You know, it could be a personal thing that you've set for yourself to be learning based. Maybe you want to be a better cook, right? Maybe, like the example earlier, maybe you want to learn another language or become more fluent in a second language. Maybe you want to, you know, read more on a specific topic so that you become more informed on that, right? So it can take on varying forms, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's just business that you're learning based in. It can be personal as well. So a learning based individual would be well-rounded. You're looking at your whole being is learning based, not just in one specific aspect. So the graphic here just talks about know for doing's sake. So the idea is that when you're ignorance based, you're looking at, I know what I know and I'll ignore everything else. Don't care, right? Oh, sorry. And it's sort of like they said, it's trivial pursuits. It doesn't really lead you anywhere. And then when you're learning based, you know for doing's sake. So I know what I know, and I know there's more to know, right? So it could be productivity on the outside. It could be enlightenment on the inside. So it comes to, you know, your self-actualization. And that's why I say it's not necessarily business focused. It's business and personal, both. You're learning based as a total. One of the things I always find funny and is when you have people try to be learning based, but they're not necessarily taking it in. And so, you know, you'll see them in courses, but they don't necessarily take the information in. They don't necessarily implement any of it. They don't make any changes as a result of what they're doing. So they're more in the infotainment side of things, if you will. So they're not really, they're there, but they're there more for the like the infotainment is just the perfect way to describe it, because they're not actually implementing anything. They're just there listening, and then it's like goes in one ear and out the other, essentially. So yeah, just want to make sure you don't get stuck in that, and that you're actually coming from a place of growth, right? So the next part we talk about is the 4 levels of competency. So with the, sometimes you'll have bad habits, and those can appear in the unconscious competence level. So if you do, you want to sort of take yourself back to the conscious competence level and learn new habits. But basically your levels, you've got unconscious incompetences. We don't know what we don't know. Then you get the knowledge, right? And then you're consciously incompetent. So we now know what we don't know. And then you get the wisdom, then you have conscious competence. Now we know. And then then it builds into a habit, and you have unconscious competence, which is now we're just doing it without thinking about it. It's become a habit, right? So I'll give you an example of unconscious competence as it pertains to real estate. Scripts are a really great example of this. So when you first start out in the business, you might not know how to handle a seller objection when you're sitting at the listing table, right? As you get more experienced with it, you'll come to realize that often there are very common things that a seller is going to bring up as an objection. So as you go through that and you practice that, if you're practicing your scripts to the point where it becomes a habit, it becomes unconscious competence, because you're just able to say the script without even thinking about it. It just comes out of your mouth. And often with scripts, you'll internalize it. So you'll put your own spin on it. It might not even be the script that you've practiced word for word. You've made it your own. So you've added your own sort of vocabulary, and it's very interesting. I've seen this happen multiple times where it'll just like that come out, and you're like, oh, that's that script. But they've the person has internalized it and practiced it to the point where it's become a habit, they don't even think about it. It just comes out of their mouth like that. So that's an example of unconscious competence, when you've practiced and you've mastered it to the point where it just rolls off your tongue and you don't think about it anymore, right? So high achievers reach their goals by making training, education, and self-development the foundational pieces of their action plan. So this, again, Keller Williams is very much about education and being learning based. So for that reason, there are tons of opportunities and courses and things that you can implement in your business, you take advantage of. So, all the way from the like market center leadership roles right down to, agent and admin roles, there is curriculum and resources for everything when you're in KW. So there are many, many options and things that are available. They're all on KW Connect. You can get all the curriculum is all there for Ignite. You'll find, guides for Win with Sellers, Win with Buyers, which are, fantastic courses as well, and everything in between. So there's a lot of great things that you can latch onto. And on KW Connect, there are also many videos there that you can watch in relation to these courses. And we also have a YouTube channel within our own market center that has all of the videos of the past training that you can, if you've missed out on something, you can go back and watch it on our YouTube channel. And there's a lot of great resources just right in our own market center there, where there's been all kinds of different people sharing things. So you'll find, training sessions done by the brokers, by the leadership team, and by other agents. So it's wonderful. And if you haven't checked it out, make sure you check it out. So so that's, George has just talked about all the different courses. So the agent curriculums here, so they talk about launch, growth, achievement, all levels. So you'll see the Millionaire Real Estate Agent, which we often refer to as the Red Book. This one, that's the one we always talk about. I just had to get it off my bookshelf. So this is a great resource, and a lot of the training we have around business planning comes from the MREA, as we call it. We like abbreviations in KW. So this is a great resource to go back to. If you haven't read it, check it out. And it's all about those systems and models in how to become a millionaire real estate agent. Even if you're not looking to become a millionaire real estate agent, but you want to get to the next level of what you want to achieve, these are still scalable. The models in here can be scaled down to an individual agent business. Then the other thing that's really another great one I always recommend is the Shift book. And that's another wonderful KW book. It talks about the shifting market and how to get ahead of it. And, it's about the activities you do. There's still opportunity in a shifting market. Now, obviously we're not in one, but when the real estate is cyclical. So when we get there, Shift book. You'll see also there's the Millionaire Real Estate Investor. That's a blue one, similar to, that's another great, a great resource, especially if you are considering going the investment property route, or you have clients looking to do that. It's a great resource for that. And the some of the other things you'll see there, I mentioned Ignite. That's a really great sort of foundational course, especially if you're just launching your business or you're relaunching. If you've been in the business but you need, you know, a little restart, the Ignite course is a great one to go through and attend if it's being offered in person. We continually offer the Ignite course. Regions continually offering it, and we offer it as well. So that's a great one. And for growth, I mentioned the career visioning course. That is the perfect course if you're looking to grow your team, make a hire, and you know, whether you're an individual agent and you want to hire an admin, whether you want to you know, start a team and hire an admin, you know, you're to the point where you want to hire a buyer agent, a listing agent, etc. All of that, you need to get yourself in the career visioning course if you're going to do that. And that goes through the hiring process and how to go through that. It lays that out very, very easily, how to follow the process and make sure that you end up with a good hire. And it also talks very detailed about our KPA, which is the Keller Personality Assessment, and how you can use that as a tool in your hiring process. So we have the KPA as a resource within the Market Center. So if you are looking to do any sort of hiring, reach out to Erin about the KPA, and Laura Lee and I can help you. If you haven't had a KPA done yourself, that's the first place to start. And then have Laura Lee or I validate it for you. You want to do that before you get into the process of doing it for someone else. But that's just, so that's just sort of an overview of some of the courses that we offer at KW. And, you know, oh, look, there's all the books, all the different resources that are available. So there are all the books that I mentioned. And of course, we've mentioned the one thing already a few times today, and that's another great resource as well. And their website has tons of stuff on it as well. So it's a really awesome one. I'll touch a little bit about MAPS coaching, and it's a really wonderful organization. If you're not familiar with them, Colin, our PC coach, is a MAPS business coach, and so MAPS is an organization through KW, and it's specific to coaching. So these people have all been trained, certified. They have to meet a certain level of standards in order to be a coach, and they're basically experts in the fields that they're coaching in, and they're there to help you talk about what you might need to implement to help increase your business, you know, further your development and keep you accountable. And so they're a wonderful resource if you're able to tap into it. And of course, we have Colin as our PC coach here, so that you have a coach that's like one-on-one available as well. So there are many, many resources as far as coaching goes. And there's group coaching options as well, rather than individual, which can be really helpful as well to have that group atmosphere. So that's all. So those are all sort of the resources. The next thing is an exercise to talk about plan your learning path. So the idea is to share your goal. Now, they're saying with your neighbor, because normally we'd be sitting in a classroom, and then be consciously incompetent. What don't you know? And then really commit to learning, and then think strategically and leverage KWU to build your downline and help you achieve your goal. So it might be, you know, in the learning side of it, it might be committing to completing your 411, and then having someone, you know, help keep you accountable to it. It might be, you know, setting up like that script partner, like we talked about. And it might be reading, if you haven't read The Millionaire Real Estate Agent or The One Thing, it might be reading one of those books that you haven't read yet. So there are many different avenues that you could take to plan your learning path and set your goals specific to your learning based goals. So that's an important thing to factor into your 411 and your goal setting. Any questions on that? Any clarification on courses and things that are offered? So everybody knows we have our training calendar is shared as a Google Calendar. So you have the ability to see all of the training that's being provided through our market center, and the regional training events are also on our training calendar, and that's a Google Calendar, so you can have that right on your phone, and it's makes it really easy, especially if you've got it subscribed in your calendars on your phones, so that you can participate in the sessions. Many of our sessions within our market center are recorded. Most of the regional ones are, but not necessarily all of them. So some of those you do have to actually attend to participate in them. And so the next step thing before we move on, any ahas from this learning-based section? Everybody knew all of the things we had already. So next, before we get into the next section, I want to ask everybody a question, and I want you to either raise your hand or like digitally raise your hand so that I can see your answers. So by a show of hands, how many of you can draw? See your answers. Okay, so you can put your hands down. So I want you to think, Ashley, nope. That would have been my answer too. If I had asked that question to a group of first graders, how many of them do you think would raise their hands versus us? Because we had 3 hands out of 10, right? Probably all of them would raise their hands, right? Because to them, they all think they can draw. Because I didn't quantify the question with, can you draw well? I just asked you if you could draw. So my drawing personally is going to be like a stick figure, but that is drawing. But the point of the question is that we all have limiting beliefs. And I didn't ask you if you could draw well, but that's how you perceived the question. And that's a limiting belief. You can't draw, because I wasn't specific to asking you if you could draw well. So limiting beliefs, it's a great topic. We talk about this a lot in Bold, and it's the idea that you want to remove beliefs from your thinking that are going to hold you back. And so with limiting beliefs, you often, sometimes you don't necessarily know that they're there, and sometimes you are aware of them. So, you know, some of the negative or things that you'll hear is, you know, that there's no way I can be successful in this market, right? I don't have enough time for training. I can't devote 3 hours time for lead generation, right? But if you redirect that negativity into positivity and make them unlimited beliefs, it's, you know, if I put in the time for training now, I'll reap the benefits long term, right? I'm going to see the results of my business. A shifted market is the best opportunity for gaining market share. I can't afford not to miss 3 hours of my lead generation. That's what's going to generate my business for the future. So, you know, an example is that, like in one situation, we had an MCA who was facilitating this course, and she gave the example that she never thought that she and her husband would be able to successfully own an investment property and then pay off that investment property, right? And that she came to realize that she had a limiting belief around that. So when she changed her focus and she changed her mindset around that limiting belief, and she got really purposeful around tracking the numbers and finding a good deal for an investment property, and then making sure that they track their numbers, she was able to not only successfully purchase an investment property, but she was able to, after 9 years, pay off that investment property through the income generated, passive income that was generated from the investment property. But initially, she had that limiting belief that I'm never going to be able to own an investment property. I'm never going to be able to ever pay off an investment property if I get one. And, you know, those were two limiting beliefs she had, and she was able to overcome both of them. So the important thing with limiting beliefs is to keep re-examining them, because they can change over time, and they can show up at every step as you move through, you know, your goals. And when you're going from entrepreneurial to purposeful, and you're going to break through that ceiling of achievement, you're going to come up against limiting beliefs often when you get to that ceiling of achievement. They sort of go hand in hand. So, like I said earlier, that sort of cycle keeps repeating itself, and it's something that, you know, your new natural is going to help you get through that, and then you're going to keep repeating the process so that you keep reaching that different level of achievement. But limiting beliefs can also show up they can show up from influences from people that you're close to. So it could be family members, right? You might find that you have a limiting belief because of something like a partner, a spouse, a family member might have that limiting belief, so now you have it. So you want to just want to be aware of it, and make sure you examine whether you do have a limiting belief around that topic, and what you can do to change it and make it an unlimited belief. So, you know, they can come up in various forms. Like I said, for some people, it can be, they can be, you know, personal business, they can be small, they can be big. And I know, like, for me personally, I used to have a limiting belief that I couldn't speak publicly. I hated speaking publicly, despised it. And I had that limiting belief, I'm never going to be able to be comfortable to get up in front of a room and speak in front of people. And it took me quite a bit of time and practice speaking to get comfortable at it, to the point where I don't mind it. I'm actually almost enjoy it. but I had that limiting belief that I hated it. I was uncomfortable doing it. I said I would never be able to do it. And I moved through the process and became very comfortable doing it with the practice and you know, being purposeful about continuing to put myself in the situation where I had to speak publicly. Now I don't mind speaking publicly at all. I actually quite enjoy it, and I like it. But I did not think I would ever get to this place initially. So, you know, your limiting beliefs can come in various different subject matter. It doesn't necessarily have to be, and it doesn't have to be something big, it can be something small. But the idea is to you know, self-reflect and examine whether you do have a limiting belief, and then what you can do to overcome it, and then how have successes come from overcoming it, right? So you know, with the earlier example that I gave with the MCA, from her limiting belief with the investment properties, they've now, she and her husband have been able to go on and purchase more investment properties now that they were able to pay off, you know, their first initial investment property, right? So it's really interesting when you look within and kind of really get honest about what you've got a limiting belief around, and how you can, you know, move purposely to overcome it. It's at the feeling afterwards when you do overcome it. It's great, and you'll often see that it leads to different successes afterwards. Does anybody else have any examples of when you had a limiting belief and how you removed it? For me, I had to force myself to speak publicly, and I just had to keep doing it until I got to the point where I was comfortable and enjoyed it.
Well, Melissa, I actually had done that as well, but that particular public speaking one happened when I was in high school.
Yeah.
I was terrified to speak in public, and so I joined the debate team.
Yep.
And I would actually be ill before every debate. I would go to the washroom, I'd be sick, and then I'd go out and I'd do my debate. And it did get to the point where I was like, okay, there's something about this I'm getting charged up out of now. Like, I turned it around so that, you know, there was another one that I had decided I'd never be able to quit smoking. I haven't smoked in so long, I can't remember when I did, but I convinced myself on the negative side, I convinced myself that if I smoked, I would be unbelievably ill, nauseous, ill. So I convinced myself even to smell cigarette smoke would make me nauseous, and eventually it did. And I just didn't desire a cigarette anymore. And most recently, I had a limiting belief that I would never be able to give up the foods that I loved, which were like pastas, potatoes, rice, bread. I was like, I can't ever give those things up. I love them so much. I'm just going to be fat. Like, I'm just going to have to adjust myself to the fact that I'm always going to be really, really overweight. And then through practice and failing and practicing and getting better and still failing and continuing to go, it's amazing. I've dropped 60 pounds to where I am now. I know Jen, God, she's like my personal cheerleader, for the record. Jen is. She's like so awesome. Every time I see her, she's like, you're so sexy, you're so pretty. I'm like, damn girl. Anyway, but that was a limiting belief that I had. And it wasn't until I changed my perspective of what I couldn't have to what I could have, which was above and beyond food. It went to, I can now go for hikes again, where I had so much inflammation I couldn't. I can keep up with my nieces and nephews who are younger. I have energy. I have desire. My brain fog is gone. Like, all the things that were holding me back, I focus on the positives and not the negatives. And I've now just convinced myself that, you know, when it's true, bread does make me sick. I bloat up. So it does make me sick. But those were limiting beliefs through my life that I've overcome. And right now I'm working on smart plans. I have a limiting belief about smart plans. I can't do them. So I'm trying to get past that. It's on my list, on my success list of smart plans to help with my lead generation, to make my life easier. Thank you, Erin and Jess. They've been like trying to help me through that for months. So,
wow, that's incredible. 60 pounds.
Yeah, and girls still got 25 to go, but you know, it'll happen.
Well done.
Thank you. And let's just not mention the stress of starting a new business, right?
Yes, right.
Because I am an emotional eater. So I gotta talk myself off that ledge all the time.
Does anybody else have an example they want to share before we move on? No? Okay. So we just sort of kind of talked about this, so we'll keep going, but just this is just an exercise around removing your limiting beliefs. So we'll keep going. So step 6, be accountable. So accountability can sometimes have a negative connotation. It doesn't have to. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. And there are varying forms of accountability. So, you know, here, well, in this diagram, you'll see when you're accountable, you seek reality. So you're aware. You are asking, what is the situation? When you aren't accountable, you don't seek reality, and you're coming from a place of ignorance. You're not asking questions, right? When you're coming from the place of accountability, you acknowledge reality. So you have clarity around, this is the way it is. I've got this. I'll see what's going on. And when you're not coming from the place of accountability, you fight that reality. So you're very much in denial. That's not the way it is. That's not how I see it. That's your perception, right? When you're coming from a place of accountability, you own it. So there's energy and focus around that, around owning it. If it's to be, then it's up to me. What do I want? I've got to do something. This is my responsibility. So you're owning it. You're owning the situation. You're owning the outcome. You're owning whatever it is. Whereas the opposite is, you know, if you're not coming from that place of accountability, you blame, right? And you're projecting. So if everybody would just do their job, it's not my fault, it's yours. The market is to blame. The economy is to blame. Why didn't you do something, right? The blame game starts. When you come from a place of accountability, you find solutions. We call it being solutions-based, right? There are possibilities. What are my options? How can I get what I want? What can I do? And when you're not coming from that place of accountability, you've got personal excuses coming in. So there's deflection. Nobody told me. It's not my job. I did my part. I was never given a chance. It doesn't work here. I did what I was supposed to do. It didn't work. I can't think of anything else to do, right? There's like excuse after excuse after excuse. When you come from a place of accountability, you get on with it. There's an action plan. So let's go get started. Time's up, let's go. This is what I will do. I was never given a chance. Okay, let's do it. Let's get on with it. Very action-based, right? And then when you're not coming from a place of accountability, you're waiting and hoping. So there's that resignation. And it's, you know, if it was meant to be, it will happen. Let's just wait and see. We've done all we could. Time will tell. It's out of my hands. The proof is in the pudding, right? So with when you're on the accountability side, you're accountable, there's change. When you're in the victim mode, it's status quo, right? So the idea is to continually ask yourself if you're staying out of judgment of both yourself, because we judge ourselves, and others. And to remind yourself to continue moving towards accountability and out of victim mode, right? So yeah, I love this quote. I'm going to read you this quote. This is Steve Marabelli, the author of Unapologetically You. Your complaints, your drama, your victim mentality, your whining, your blaming, and all of your excuses have never gotten you even a single step closer to your goals and dreams. Let go of your nonsense. Today's a new day. Love it. So this chart just sort of summarizes some of the things we just talked about, right? Victim mode versus being in an accountability mode, right? So we just went over this. So accountability is an attitude and an approach. So the idea is that an accountable person says everything in my life is a result of my choices and actions. I own my life, right? I own the results. I own the situation. And accountability is also a tool for continually changing the results in your life in the areas that matter most. And a person who is accountable in their 20% says, I own my life, and in certain areas, I want to continue improving my results. I will be purposeful, and I will be learning based to continue improving. So see how it all of the models tie together. So accountability is very much an attitude and an approach to your entire life. And an accountable person is going to say, like I said, everything in my life is a result of my choices and actions. I own it, right? And it's also can be a tool to change the results in the areas that matter to you. So if you're accountable in your 20% and you're not seeing the results you want, then maybe you need some help around being accountable in your 20%. You might need an accountability partner. You might need a coach, right? You might just need to write. For some who've never written down their goals before, the simple matter of writing down your goals and then coming back and checking and refocusing on those goals and where you are in relation to your goals is part of your accountability process for yourself. And sometimes that's a tool that you can use. So it's important to understand, like, nobody's perfect, right? You can get into victim mode, and it's happens. You can slip into that mindset, but you want to just make sure that you're aware of it, and you will make a conscious decision to stop being a victim and start being accountable. And it's something that you can, in order to achieve at a higher level, accountability is something that's going to help you get there. So it's important to be aware of. So in this exercise, we're going to think of an issue or problem you're struggling with right now. And when I say go, we'll do this as a group, share the issue. And this is really funny when this can be done in person, because you walk around and complain about the problem for a minute. And then we come back and we accept the reality of the issue and we take action in how to resolve it. It's kind of hard to do this one in Zoom, but the idea is that we would walk around the room and we would just be in victim mode and all complaining, right? And then we'd come back together and change our focus, get out of victim mode, get into the accountability mode, and come up with a plan of how we're going to snap out of that. So I think we'll actually skip this because I don't think we can really do this in a meaningful way on Zoom. There are some limitations to what we can do on Zoom. I think this is one of them. So we'll keep going, but you guys get the gist of what the exercise is. So accountability can take different forms. So it can, for many people, it's not necessarily business. So, and at KW, accountability is a very important thing. So, it goes all the way up. Every leadership position in the company has some form of accountability, like as part of their role. It's part of being part of KW is coming from that accountability place. So this graphic here that you see on the screen, this is the accountability for the people in Mo Anderson's life. So for those of you who may not know, Mo Anderson was the first CEO of Keller Williams after Gary Keller. So Gary Keller was our founder and was the first CEO, and he realized many years ago now, but he realized that he wasn't the person to take the company to the next level. And he basically replaced himself with Mo Anderson. So she was the first CEO after Gary, and she is one of the, well, I call her a pillar within Keller Williams. She is the person who is credited with creating the culture within Keller Williams. And Red Day, which we have every May, which is our Renew, Energize, Donate, where we go out, give back to our community. Red Day was her sort of legacy, although Mo is still with us, but she's on the board of directors now. She's no longer in the executive roles, but Red Day is always the second Thursday in May, and it's to coincide with Mo Anderson's birthday. Anyway, so that's just a little bit of why she's the example here in the course. But her accountability example here shows that you can have accountability in all aspects of your life. So it doesn't necessarily mean it's business. So for her, she's got financial segment where she has two people that keep her accountable in that way. She's got a spiritual segment, so she's got two people there. She's got a physical, Nina Rowan Heller, who is a personal trainer. And then in business, she's got Gary Keller and Ed Livermore. So accountability can look different for everyone, and it can be in all the aspects of your life. And many of these people, actually, I think all of these people are some form of coach, right? So, you know, they're a financial, spiritual, physical, or business coach. And that is, you know, a very common theme in that a coach will often help keep you accountable. So the next part is to look at who are the people in your box, and do you have someone to keep you accountable in your financial, spiritual, physical, and business circles, or are you just winging it? And then use the people in the box graphic in your manual and complete it to fill it in so that you're very clear around who those people are for you. And if you don't have people in those areas, look at who that would be, examine who that would be, and when are you going to add them by. So accountability partners, like I said, often they're coaches. So, you know, physical, like I said, could be a personal trainer. Spiritual could be any number of things depending on what spiritual means to you. It's a very personal choice. So that could have varying different levels of who that could be. It could be financial, could be a financial advisor. Business can be a team leader, a productivity coach, MAPS coach, an accountability partner, right? So there's all kinds of different people that you could include in your box to keep you accountable. So the whole point of this is to just look at, do you have somebody in each of these segments? And if not, who should you, and who would it be? So the accountability session. So this is a model for consulting. So this is, again, what we talked about at the very beginning. What was your goal? How did you do? How do you feel about that? Based on how you did, what is your goal and what do you need to do now? So is there anything that might keep you from doing that? And if you needed training or support to do this, what might it be? So this is just a basic model to follow in a consulting session for accountability. So if you were going to do this with another agent, this is a great model to follow so that you guys have a guide of what questions to be asking each other. And it could simply be something you do with your partner or spouse too. This next one, this is the career growth initiative. So this is just a graphic that we see very often in Keller Williams, and it talks about how your appointments, right? Like we talk about, that's your pipeline for your buyer and sellers, are going to lead to your listings. And then your listings are going to lead to your closings. And then your closings are going to lead to your profit. So it's just laying out, you know, your 4 main categories. And then like your appointments are your pipeline. So who do you have in your pipeline? So this would be buyers or sellers that are, you know, a seller that's looking to list, you know, in the next 3 to 6 months. That would be some in your pipeline. A buyer that's looking to move here in 6 months, that would be in your pipeline. And then your listings monthly worksheet would be tracking your monthly listings and who's, you know, what listings you have coming on and where you are with your goal. And then your listing management, and then your GCI, right, which your gross commission income as a result of your profit from your closings from your buyers and sellers. So in between, you see this wall of value, and underneath the wall of value is the agent trend tool, the agent lure tool, and the local expert. So these are things that tools you can use to help you track these things. So your agent trend tool, we often call it your multi-year trend. You can get your multi-year trend report on MyKW. If you don't know how to do that, Erin can show you. But it tracks your listings, your closings, your GCI, all of that. It's all there. Now, because of the way our transmittal works, we transmit at the end of every month, which means we close out our books at the end of every month, and then profit share is paid. You'll find in your tools, your multi-year trend and things on KW, they're a little bit behind because we have to transmit at the end of the month and then the reports are generated. So they're not as, we'll say, real time, right? They're usually about a month behind.
They're not too bad. Like right now, you should be able to go on and you would have November's numbers. So It's not too far behind.
Yeah. The agent lure tool, that's the language of real estate. And that's the report we often share in the monthly meeting from the market center perspective and the market numbers, where we are in relation to the rest of the region, or where we are in relation to the market itself. So you can find that on MyKW as well. And the local expert, that's a call it a flyer that can be generated from that as well. So that's the last part of the 6 personal perspectives. And as I said, the idea is that the 6 personal perspectives, they all relate and intertwine. And the idea is that once you've committed and mastered them, you're on your way to achieving that next level of success. So what, in keeping with the theme for the one thing, is that we recommend that you pick one of these things to focus on and master one of these things and work on it. And then once you have worked on one, then go to the next one. Don't try to do all 6 of them at once. Pick one and focus on it, and then move to the next one. So the last part is, the last exercise is looking at picking out which one you're going to make your focus first and sharing that. So I think I'll share with you the most common one I hear is probably the 80-20. Is people feel that they need to get refocused on their 20% and really dig deep into what that 20% is. But it's going to be different for everyone. That you might feel you have that one mastered and you need to work on E to P. You might need to work on self-mastery. Maybe you need to be more learning-based. maybe you've got some limiting beliefs you need to work on, and that's the one that stands out for you, or maybe you need to get some more accountability in your life. So that's it for today. Any questions, any ahas, things you want to share?
That was awesome. I really, really appreciated it. It's nice to get things locked in. Every time I come to something like this, I feel that it just kind of settles in more and it's less overwhelming. I'm like, okay, I got that bit. Okay, got that bit. Oh, missed that entirely. Oh crap, I forgot all about that. So I appreciate that. And actually I had bolded step 2 for the 80-20 because I do find that the pebbles in the frickin' water tend to get in the way of my big rock. So I need to make sure I stay focused on the big rocks. And I wrote them out this time. So I know exactly which big rocks are my focus and I'm putting them on my whiteboard.
Awesome. Love it.
So, yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah. And that's why, like I said, don't try to do all 6 at once, right? You'll end up overwhelmed. Focus on one thing at a time, right? We're getting back to the one thing. Did you notice that was a theme? So yeah, focus on one at a time, and then move to the next one that you feel is the next important for you to spend more time on. Yeah.
Incredible. And Jess's dog, I don't know if she's supposed to be a lap dog, but totally is a lap dog.
She's definitely not a lap dog, but she thinks she is. She has
She's
prime view of the window from here, and Josh is out shoveling the driveway, so she had to be up and supervising.
Mm-hmm. Too cute.
I'm like so crushing on that dog right now. And I don't know who, it's Melanie Lawson had her dog into the office yesterday. I could not get enough of that dog. Like,
He's so cute.
So cute. Anyway, thank you so much, Melissa. This was incredible. I had planned my day around this, so I so appreciate the value that you brought. Truly, truly got it. And yeah, it was brilliant. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was great to see everybody. And thanks for your patience with Zoom, because I had planned to do this as like a hybrid in-person Zoom session. So thank you for your patience with me on Zoom, because it's a whole other thing trying to like coordinate an interactive class on Zoom. So thank you.
That was great. I don't know. I think Erin and Jess were proud of you. I think that you managed it very well.
Those limiting beliefs.
That's right.
Perfect, Jen.
You did a great job. Thank you so much. I'm going to work on the 80-20. That's a big thing for me, and being new. Yeah. It just takes me that much longer to get things done. I'm same as Sherry. It's a daily focus that I keep pushing. I'll just show you my calendar. X, arrow. It's got to happen. So especially now before Christmas, it's good to get out there and people start talking to their family members about their living situation. And so thanks again. Nice to see everybody.
Nice to see you too. Thanks, everybody. Have a good day. Happy shoveling.
Thank you.